Hey guys, I'm Potato McWhiskey and welcome to an Astroneer tutorial. This is sort of a quick start guide to help you get started in Astroneer. The game isn't super complicated, but there isn't really a very in-depth tutorial at the moment, so I'm going to go through the very basic steps that you're going to go through when you start up the game and launch into your first settlement. And the very first thing you're going to do here is, well, obviously you're going to land on the planet. And here we are. You press tab to get out of your thing. Now it's going to be different if you're playing on a Xbox. I think it's out on Xbox. I can't remember exactly. But this is mainly aimed for PC players. And the very first thing you're going to want to do is take out your terrain tool with E and look around for any resources that are near your ship. Now don't forget that you can sprint by holding the shift button. It will make you run faster. And here's one of the resources we are going to want to start out gathering. This is compound. It's used for a lot of very useful things, so we're going to want to grab some. All you do is press E to take out your digging tool, and then left click and you can start digging away at the ground. If you run out of power in the very early game, you can go looking for something like this. This is a power node, and it's very, very useful for getting yourself started generating energy. So all you do is take out your tool again, hover over it with your mouse, and then click and start absorbing the energy. Notice how my energy bar has filled up on the back. I'll show you that a little bit closer in detail in a moment. Now I have spare power on my back. So this yellow bar here is my energy bar, and the blue bar on top of my backpack is my oxygen bar. You see my oxygen bar filling up now because I'm standing near here. This tether is refilling my oxygen. So, the very first thing you're going to look for is either resin or compound, and the very first thing you're going to want to build is on your backpack. Your crafting screen is down here at the bottom. Now, these two little arrows will let you cycle through the things that you can craft, and the very first thing you're going to want to craft is either a wind vane or a solar panel. And I'm going to start here with a solar panel. Solar panel is a little bit more useful in the early game in my opinion, and it'll automatically get placed up onto the side of your backpack. And that'll give you extra power to start harvesting extra resources. So we'll go back here and we'll gather up some more compound. And make sure you're careful about your oxygen levels too. It's pretty important that you don't run out of oxygen. So just always keep an eye on that little blue bar. Little pop-ups appear to give you warnings and stuff. So always just pay attention and keep it in your mind. Now here we have pretty much dug out all of the compound over there. So we're going to want to run back here. Now, depending on whether you find resin or compound first, you're going to want to do a couple of things. Since I found compound first, I'm going to want to click on the compound in my backpack, and I'm going to want to save to on my shelter. There's two slots here that you can hide resources on, and I'm going to want to just keep those there to keep those resources safe for when I need them later. Now, the second thing you're going to want to look for, if you found compound first, like I did, is this stuff over here. This is resin. This is pretty important. This is your basic building block that lets you expand your base. And you're going to want a lot of it throughout the game. So just look for this and dig it up out of the ground by left clicking like you did with the compound. And that will get you this stuff. And just keep digging. Because I have spare energy from harvesting the energy node earlier, I can keep digging for a very, very long time. And it's very important that you try and find an energy node early because it will let you do a lot more at the start of the game. And just keep an eye on your oxygen. My oxygen is pretty okay. I can get away with running away for a little while. Now, I have some resin. I have enough resin, and I have one. Oh, I accidentally dropped my compound. I have the resin I need, and I also have some compound. So, how do you build a base? What do you do? Well, the first thing you do is you run around your habitat here, or your shelter, and you stand in the direction you want to build. And then you click on this thing to extend. And now from here, there's two things you can do. If you have the resin on your backpack, you can just click here on this little resin hologram, and it will automatically take it from your backpack. But you can also go into your backpack and pick up the resin and manually place it, and it'll extend out and create a base. Now, there's two things you can do with this. You can use it as a node to build on by placing 2 resin on top of it, or you can use it to extend. You can't do both. You have to choose one or the other. So you can use this to extend your base, or you can use it to build a node on top of. I'm going to extend this one just to show you that the other way to do this is by clicking on these here. And so there it is. I extended out my base one more time, and we're going to put 2 resin onto this to create a kind of building node. I'm not sure what the actual name of them is, but basically, same thing. You can just click on these, and it'll pull straight out of your backpack and create a place to build your base on top of. Now, there's one thing you're going to want to start out with, and that is the research. So there's 2 little arrows here that you can click on, and this will cycle through the options in either direction pretty quickly. One of the first things you want to get is a smelter and a researcher. Now I'm going to start here with the researcher to show you how that works. So it takes 2 compound. Now luckily I thought ahead and I put 2 compound on the side of my base so that I could save them for later. And then I just take them off and put them on my backpack and head over here. And then again, since I have them on my backpack here, you can see them, I can just click and it'll automatically pull them out. And then I can begin the research. Okay, so you have your research. Now, what is the next thing you need to do? Well, research is no good without power. So there's a couple ways you can power it. I think one of the ways is you can actually just put power blocks directly onto this node, and it'll pull power from this power block and fill up these power bars you can see here. Now, if I had something to research, I could put it on top and research. The other way is this little thing here, you can put a solar panel on top of if you feel like it. I'll just drop one there. There's my solar panel now. I'm going to make another solar panel for myself. So now there's a solar panel on here that's charging it. And then there should be another one on my backpack. You can also put the solar panel here or here. But I like to put it there because these slots I use for storing resources and stuff. Okay, so you have your research. But what was the point of this? What do I do now? Well, look for things that look interesting. For example, over here. This thing is sort of a fauna or plant or something, and pretty often if you dig underneath it, you will find some goodies like this. Here's a pretty big goodie that I can pick up, and you'll see things like this all throughout the world. They all look different, they all have different designs on them, and the very first time that you bring one of these back, it will give you new technology. And so you're going to want to do that a lot. You're going to want to go exploring and looking for these things, and that will give you access to new things. So I researched this thing here, and the little animation goes through, and out pops a new thing. I'll zoom out here so you can see a little bit better. Here we go. I got a trade platform. Now that's not very useful for me at the moment, but just keep looking out for those things and keep finding them. Okay, so you've built your first thing. What's the next thing that you need to do? I've got my research, and I've researched a few things. What's next? Well, you're going to want to keep gathering resources. So I'm going to cut here, gather a little bit of resources, and then talk about the next steps. Alright, so I gathered some more compound and a little bit more resin to help me get started building my base. Now you're going to want to do something pretty important here at this point once you get to this stage in order to help you be a little bit more safe in your progression. You're going to want to take one compound and put it onto your back and then craft something called tethers. These are pretty important and we're going to talk about them later, but just make sure that you have a set of tethers once you've built a research table. Now we are going to be extending out this way, so we're going to stand where we want to extend our base, and then we're going to click on this kind of weird techno snake thing. I don't know what it's actually called. Since I gathered some resin, I'll place another resin on here and it'll extend my base. And I'll do that one more time. I'll extend my base out this way. You don't have to build your base this way, but this is just the way I like to build my base, sort of neatly and in lines. And there you go. Now we've got our second portion of our base. So, what do we do with this one? Well, the very next thing you're going to want is probably a smelter, because this is the other thing that takes just basic resources. So take 2 compound and stick them into these slots, and then activate it. And there we go, here is the smelter. And then we're also going to want to take one more compound and put a solar panel on this one. Although it is possible to transfer power through your base, so it's not entirely super important that we put a solar panel on this one, but I'm going to do it just for the sake of it. Powering your base in the early game, 2 solar panels should more or less do it for quite a while. Okay, so now I've used up almost all my resources. I do have 2 spare compounds just for extra tethers, and I'm ready now to do some real exploring. I have a research table and a smelter, so let's get properly started. So the very first thing you're going to want to do now is have a little bit of a scout around for more resources. For example, there's some compound over there and there's some other stuff. But at this point, if you're looking for kind of one or two things, you're either looking for a crashed piece of a spaceship on the horizon, and so it'll kind of like, it'll be pretty obvious when you see it, it'll be this huge thing sticking out of the ground, or you're going to want to look for resource drops. And that's these kind of ball-shaped things over here. So, what do you do once you find one? Because they can be pretty far away and you don't have enough oxygen to make it over to them. Well, that's why we crafted the tethers. Tethers allow you to extend the range of your base. All you do is press T, and then you can place a tether. And now, I can get oxygen from a little bit further away. And since the balloons are over this way, I'm just going to keep placing tethers on the way over to them, so I don't run out of oxygen. This is a great way to extend your range in the early game when you don't have a vehicle. So now I make it over here, and now we found some resources in here. We found a copper, and that's going to be very useful because we can make a lot of things with copper. So we found this, that's pretty useful, but that's not going to be the only one of these. There's going to be a few of these, so let's keep exploring and grab a couple of these. Alright, and that one had a compound on it and an aluminum. Also useful. You're going to want to just look around for these things, see if you can find them. I only found 2, which isn't ideal. You generally speaking, you're going to want like a few of these so that you get a good chance of getting resources. So at this point, if I want to keep these tethers here, I can. But also, I can also just pick them back up and drop them back into my backpack. And so I don't waste any resources. Well, I guess we just discovered a bug in the middle of a tutorial. For now, just make sure you keep your tethers up here in the top left. Otherwise, it won't take them back into your inventory. I kind of wasted a few there, but it's not a huge deal. But yeah, you can recycle them. Just make sure your tethers are in the top left slot. At this point, we're going to be looking for an underground cave and going underground. So I'll be back once I find a cave that's suitable. Alright, so we're not too far away from our base right now. We're a few tethers away. But we did manage to find a cave. And I dug a little tunnel down here. So we're still within view range of our base. So you should spawn with a cave within view range. Now, sometimes you might not. I don't know. I've never had a game start where I didn't. And you're going to want to have some extra tethers to be able to explore into the cave. And there's a few things you're looking for in the cave. One of the things you're looking for are these things. These things are very dangerous. I'm going to show you what happens when you get close to them. They kind of explode and kill you. Oh wait, they're not doing it. Kind of weird. Usually, there you go. Okay, so you see the way my screen went all red and stuff. So you don't want to be too close to those when you break them. Just all you have to do is stand back a little bit, point at them, and then dig underneath them, and they should pop pretty safely to you with no damage. And now we found 2 things that we can research and bring back to our base. So I'll bring these back. There we go. But yeah, so this is just basically the gameplay loop in the early game. Go into caves, explore things, and then when you have reached the technology you want to reach, you're going to want to go up to the surface, look for more resin and compound, and bring those back to expand your base. I'm going to show you another thing about these research things is after you have researched this type of research before, so the one I just unlocked looked exactly like this one. So the next time I research this, I won't get another technology. I should get a resource. For example, I might get some copper, or I might get some aluminum, titanium, or hydrazine. So here we go, we're going to do a little bit of research, and here we go, we got some resin. So we can use that resin to build our base. It's not pointless to bring back things that you've already researched, but you might want to like sort of prioritize bringing back the research things that you haven't already brought back. Now, there's another few useful things to know about caves, is that not only can they spawn dangerous things, but they also have their own plants and stuff that you can dig under, and typically there will be something useful underneath it. So here's another unique type of research underneath this guy. Very useful. Okay, I brought back the piece of research, but it's nighttime and my solar panels won't work. What are my options to do something about that? Well, I have a piece of copper and I have a piece of aluminum. And now with your first piece of copper and first piece of aluminum, you're probably going to want to craft a generator with a piece of copper and a wind turbine with the piece of aluminum. This will just give you power independence, which means basically that you don't have to worry about what time of day it is or what's happening in order to have energy for your base. Now I recommend putting the wind turbine somewhere where it'll catch wind. Typically on these things it'll do just fine. The generator can go here too. Now the generator is if it's not daytime, if there's no wind, and you still need some power, what you can do is you can go around and you see all these kind of plants and stuff on the ground. If you just dig lightly nearby them, what they'll do is you'll pick them up and turn them into a thing called organics. Now organics isn't very useful on its own, but what you can do with organics is put it on top of a generator to make power, to power your research, to power everything. It's not a very sustainable way of doing things, but it is useful if you just need some quick power. Go grab some organics, stick it on top of a generator, and there you go. Now I can do the research. So I think this is a new research thing. No, it's not. We have researched this one before, so I'm just confirming what we have seen before. Okay, so I went out and I gathered a little bit more resources, and I have another platform to build things upon. Now I built them a little bit too close, which was a bit of a mistake. I should have spaced them out a little bit more, but it's not a big deal. They still work just perfectly fine. It's just they'll be a little bit weird when I put modules on top of this later. So the very next thing you're going to want is probably a printer or a vehicle bay, depending on what you find in a cave, which is where we're going next, because we found a couple of researches in the cave, but we need to find more things in a cave. Now I'm not going to go back over to this cave. I'm going to go explore. We're going to make our way over to this cave. I'm going to show you what another type of cave looks like, because these ones are the ones that are more common, and you're more likely to find these when you're playing the game. This is a kind of a cave hole, I guess. It's just basically a hole in the ground that leads to a cave. This is what it's going to look like for the majority of you when you play the game. You're going to see a hole in the ground like this, and you're going to want to go exploring it. So, grab a tether, grab a set of tethers, and go buck wild exploring. And I'll be back once I find some copper. Alrighty, so I've explored a little bit, and I managed to find a pretty big cave system. And we've explored quite a bit. I've probably used about 10 to 20 tethers to get this deep. Maybe I'll show you that later. And we found what we were looking for. I don't know how to exactly pronounce this, but this is basically copper ore. I think it's called malachite or malachite. I think it might be kite. But basically, you know, like any other resource, we're just going to dig this out of the ground and then bring it home. And we're going to want to make sure we're very careful, because sometimes these guys can have hidden pieces underground like that. So you're going to want to dig pretty extensively to make sure you don't miss any. Now also down in these caves you can find these guys again, and they have one of these. Now we've already researched that type, so I'm not going to bring this one back, but this one is definitely a new one. So I'm going to bring this up, and I guess I'll show you the cave system that we found and show you how deep it goes. But basically this is what you're going to be doing in the early game when you're building up and getting, you know, your early time research before you have a vehicle and a spaceship. So this is the cave. It's pretty long, and you can expect this to be pretty typical. Sometimes you'll get a cave that has just filled with resources. Sometimes you'll get one that's like goes on forever that doesn't have any. I kind of got one of those this time, but it just really depends on the world that you spawn in and where you spawn in on that world. Oh goodness, looks like one of these sandstorms is back again, so I'm gonna have to wait this out. Okay, so we are back at our base and we have this piece of research, so let's get it researching. So we have all this malachite ore, and we need copper, so what do we do with it? Well, that's where the smelter comes in. All you do is you take the malachite off your back and you place it on top of the smelter. Once you can smelt up to 4 things at a time, but you don't have to smelt 4 things at a time. You can do 1 at a time, you can do 3 at a time, you know, whatever combination works. Or whatever you just have and need. So we're smelting... Oh, I think it ate one of my pieces of copper. Well, I guess we just discovered another bug. Make sure that you have cleared off all of these side pieces when you're going to be smelting, because that's just something I discovered. Anyway, after you smelt up your copper, you're going to want to put it onto your printer and build your printer. Now the printer is a very useful thing that you're going to be using a lot, but it also requires power. Now you can see here that my buildings are transferring spare power from themselves over here, so I don't need to put anything on here because I have enough power generation at this point that I can safely run my base. So here we go, this is what I was hoping to get. Now we're at the next sort of technology stage, and that is the storage age. We can put compound. Here's the compound. We can take compound now and make extra slots to store items in our base using the printer. All we do is we place 2 compound on either side, select the storage upgrade, and then print it. The storage upgrade can be placed on any of these 2, so that you see these kind of paired slots. You can put the storage upgrade on those and it'll carry things. I'll put it here beside my smelter, and you're going to want like probably 1 or 2 of these. You can also build bigger versions of the wind turbine using 2 aluminum. You can build batteries and all that sort of stuff. But the main thing we are going to want to be looking for is actually more technology, because we don't need any of this stuff yet, because our current goal is to build a vehicle. Now to get a vehicle, we probably will need a little bit more resin, so I'm going to go gather a few more resources, build up our base a little bit more. Okay, so here we go. Here's another thing we're going to want to be looking out for, and this is a crashed landing pod. Oops, I fell off the mountain. But yeah, we're basically going to look for these things because they have usually at least 1 rare resource in them, and then a couple of less rare, but still useful resources. So just keep your eye out for these things. They'll be poking out of the ground. They'll usually have pieces of debris around, and you can dig these out. They're not much use, but you can dig them out and they move around. I'm going to go look for a few more of these, see if there's any more of these around, and keep gathering resources until I get back to showing you guys how to progress. So I managed to find the next resource that we're going to need to progress in the game. This here is laterite, and it is aluminum ore. Now you might get lucky, and exploring you could find some spaceships that have aluminum in them, but if you don't get lucky, you can always go into a cave and look for some of this laterite. Let me just double check in case there's any more hidden underneath the ground. Always a good idea to dig around. I seem to have run out of energy. If you ever run out of energy down here, by the way, in a cave, see this yellow stuff? This is just energy that you can pick up off the ground, and it'll let you keep on digging at no cost to yourself. So here we go, a little more aluminum. Here we go. Alright, I think that's enough. I think that should be 4 pieces total, so I'll drop this power. I will pick up the laterite and stick it on my backpack. And now when I come back, there's also a piece of technology over here that I'm going to grab that I found. So when I come back, I'll be back in my base and we'll be researching and smelting aluminum. Okay, we're back at our base and we're ready to research and start smelting this aluminum. Now, as it turns out, I actually found 2 pieces of aluminum, but I'm going to smelt them because you might not be lucky like I was. So, I'm going to research this new piece of technology and see what we get. And I hope we're lucky and get something cool. We got power cells. Okay, so we have a smelter, and we have laterite, we have a printer, and we have a research. So once you have these 3 things and a little bit of laterite, you're ready to progress to the next sort of tech level, which is vehicles. So all you want to do is smelt your laterite in the smelter. Make sure there's open space on the storage side of things, so your aluminum doesn't get destroyed like mine was either. Take 2 pieces of aluminum over to the vehicle bay template, drop the 2 pieces of aluminum, and start building. Now the vehicle bay does take quite a little bit of power, so at this point you're going to want to probably do a couple of things. One of them is get a higher level technology, for example solar panel. I think that's what we're going to do. So grab this compound, stick it on there. There should be another piece of compound over here. Around this time of the game, you're going to want about 2 aluminum and 8 compound, but we're going to try to stick to the sort of fairly simple, fairly easy things to pull off. And solar panels, they're fairly easy, they're fairly simple, and you can stick them on anywhere. I like to stick them on these nodes, but you can stick them over here beside these guys. Pretty much anywhere with 2 paired slots for things, you can put them. Okay, we have a solar panel, we have a vehicle bay, and we are ready. So the very first thing you're probably going to want to build is a rover. Now a rover takes 4 compounds. Let's put 4 compound on our back. Run over here and click the slots, put the compound in, and build the rover. Now in addition to the rover, you're going to want something to power it. For example, or not power it, sorry, something to drive it. I misspoke there. Yeah, you're going to want a driver's seat basically. And that's going to take another 2 compounds. So all in all, you're going to need 8 compound to build a proper vehicle. And the seat is finished, and now we can put the seat on top. You can build the seat from the vehicle bay or from the printer. If you hook up a vehicle to this, you can choose different things to put on it. I'm just going to put the seat on it, because later on we do unlock the ability to research other things. And now that my rover has a seat, we can press tab to get in and drive around the rover. Now this is the next technology level essentially, because this means we can go much further from our base without worrying about running out of oxygen or running out of power, for example, because this is essentially a mobile base, and you're going to want to stick probably a solar panel on the back of it so that you can keep it powered. Okay, so we have a rover, we have a vehicle bay, we have all this stuff. What are we doing here? Well, we're trying to unlock technology in order to progress. So this is what the rover is for. We're going to go exploring. So the rover, it will generate power if you put a power generation thing on it, for example the solar panel, and they handle a little bit crazy, so you want to be careful when you're driving them. Basically, we're looking for things that stand out and look like they have research in them. So here's something that looks like it might have research. There's a tree and what looks like, I think I might have done this one earlier, but just for the sake of argument, let's say I hadn't found it. But basically, once I found this, I can run it back to my base using the rover. Now, to make things a little bit easier for yourselves, I'm actually going to leave this here, and I'm going to drive back, because I'm going to show you the even better way to do this, in order to help yourself get through the early game even more efficiently and with less problems. Okay, so here we are. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, we built a rover. Now, how do we make our lives easier? Well, what we do is, we actually build a second rover, and then we connect them. That's all we do. So let me drive this backwards here to get it lined up. So basically, you reverse this until these two connect, and now we have a place that we can use as storage. So let's drive this off and disconnect it. And now if you're like me, I like to actually try and make this extra short so that they can get very, very close together. Because the length of the connector when you click on it will actually dictate how far away they drive from each other. So now I have like a little convoy thing. And you can stick, if you want to go mining or resource gathering, stick a storage crate on there. But we're going exploring for resources, so we're going to put one of these on. We're not going to put anything on it. Alright, and now I have a rover that has self-powered during the day, and it can hold 2 things of resources, of research. So I'm going to go exploring for research. The total cost of this rover is 8, 10, about 12 compound. So it's a pretty expensive vehicle. But at this point in the game, compound isn't a very rare resource for us. We can find a lot of it in a very little amount of time if we put our minds to it. Alright guys, this is actually what we were looking for. A crashed rocket. Now, might not look like much from the outside, but underneath here, there's a lot of goodies. For example, resources, in particular, titanium. Titanium is very useful, so we're going to pick up quite a bit of it. There's also resin and aluminum, and usually you're also going to want to do a little bit of digging around here. So I'm going to drive this cart over a little bit closer so that I can use it as a power supply. Because when I'm nearby, the solar panel will provide power to me. And you're going to want to just dig around here a little bit, because there tends to be items underneath the ground that will give you research, and since it's a unique sort of spaceship piece of research, you'll get a new technology from it. Now, it's not 100% guaranteed for it to be here, but just do a little bit of digging sort of in the general area, maybe in the mountain a little bit. It might be inside here. And basically, you just dig around until you find a piece of technology. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of digging here until I find it. So, unfortunately, 2 things happened. I don't think actually a research thing spawned near this spaceship, and a storm came. So I'm going to go look for another one once the storm dissipates and I can recharge my rover. The rover is pretty handy though, the one-seater. If you are ever out exploring when you're a rover, you can just jump inside and it'll keep you safe from the very, very dangerous rocks that are blown with the storm. Good news, guys, it looks like we found a piece of research up in these trees. Now, I don't think these are particularly unique, and I might have gotten them already, so I'll just grab them and bring them home and see what they do. Stick them on here. I've got 2 pieces of research, so it's time to load this wagon up and head on home. Alright guys, so that's pretty much going to cover the getting started quick start guide. Now, this is sort of a step-by-step guide to getting up and running. It doesn't go into every single thing you're going to encounter in the game, but it will get you to the point where you're ready to go explore the world in relative safety with some pretty cool toys. You're pretty much want to go digging in caves, you're going to want to go exploring the surface, and you're going to want to go look for new technologies, because there's some pretty cool stuff you can unlock, like bigger vehicles. You can even get a shuttle, which I was tempted to show off the shuttle, but I think that's a more interesting thing for a player to discover on his own, and I didn't want to completely ruin the game for you guys, but this will get you started, and I hope you enjoyed it. And let me know if I forgot to include any information, because I will be updating this at some point in the future. Maybe when the next big patch comes out for Astroneer, I'll redo this guide video. But that's going to be it for now. If you like this guide, please make sure you leave a like on the video. It really does help the channel out. If you want to see more Astroneer content or just content from me in general, I'll try to do more guides and stuff in the future. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. But that's more or less it. I hope you guys have a good time. See you now. Bye bye.